All the ad revenue from this video will be going to the Black Lives Matter Fund, and I will be matching all of the ad revenue that comes from this video and also donating that to the Black Lives Matter Fund. I will link that down in the description if you want to donate yourself, as well as the website that has all of the resources and things that maybe if you can't donate, things that you can do to support the Black Lives Matter movement. Been a little uncomfortable with the way diversity is spoken about on Booktube. No more so than what I've seen in the last couple of weeks. There are definitely some things that I've seen that I really liked. So this week I kind of crawled out of my self-isolation hole and actually decided to watch some Booktube videos. Obviously I started my channel about 1.5 years ago, and since I started my channel I don't watch as many Booktube videos as I did previously. I probably post more videos than I actually watch now, but this week I decided to watch a lot of Booktube videos. And one of the first things I realized when I went on YouTube is that on my homepage, YouTube was recommending me a lot of Black booktubers, which is great. I am so glad YouTube is finally recommending Black booktubers to me. But it also made me uncomfortable because of what had to happen for YouTube to recommend those booktubers to me. Like, it's not necessarily the YouTube algorithm, because the algorithm follows what people are actually watching. So right now it's trending that people are watching Black booktubers, so that's what the YouTube algorithm is recommending. We shouldn't have had to have all the things that have happened over the last 3 weeks or so in order for Black booktubers to finally get recommended on the platform. Like, this shouldn't have been necessary. And I've been pretty quiet overall about things that make me uncomfortable. I've been pretty quiet about things that are not necessarily the most positive thing. My channel, I try to be very positive on my channel. I'm a very optimistic person, and I like to be very optimistic. And this video is not going to be very optimistic. It's not the type of video that I really know how to do. I tried to start this sort of intro that I'm going to be doing in this video in several of my other videos this week and last week, and I didn't articulate myself well. I couldn't talk about it. I spent, minutes just standing in silence trying to get my words together. When I do videos, I generally don't plan very much ahead of time. I generally just get in front of the camera and talk about what I'm gonna say. And to an extent, I'm doing that in this video also, but I did plan a little bit of a structure to this video because I want to take a little bit of time and talk about Black Lives Matter. And if it makes you uncomfortable that I'm talking about Black Lives Matter, you don't have to watch this video, and you don't have to continue watching any of my videos if that makes you uncomfortable, because Black Lives Matter, and we should talk about it. And I realize it is trending to talk about it right now. I don't plan on putting those exact words in my description, because this video isn't for me to get new subscribers or to get new followers. This video is for the people who have been following me for the last 1.5 years that I've been on Booktube, because I want to make it clear to my current audience that I do stand with the Black Lives Matter movement and with all of the peaceful protesters that are out there. And I don't condone the unnecessarily brutal response that the police has had to these protests. Like I said, I don't really know how to talk about this. So if you're Black and you're watching this, I'm sorry that all of this had to happen for people to pay attention to what is going on, what has been going on for decades. If I say something that offends you, again, I'm sorry. I just don't want to be silent about this, even though it's something that makes me uncomfortable to have to talk about. And there's a lot that I've seen on social media recently. I don't spend a whole lot of time on Twitter, and I haven't said anything on either Twitter or Instagram. I have scrolled through Instagram a little bit this week. I've definitely scrolled through YouTube a lot this week. I haven't gone on Twitter. I don't plan on going on Twitter. I haven't posted on Twitter in over 1 year, and it just feels ungenuine of me to post on Twitter right now. I haven't posted on Instagram in like 6 months, so it feels, again, ungenuine of me to post on Instagram right now. But I did go through my Instagram feed a little bit, and I see a lot of people posting books by Black authors, which is great. And I see people talking about how they want to read more books by Black authors, which is great. I think people should read more books by Black authors. But then you also see posts like, very famous authors saying that, oh, they're only going to read Black authors for a while, and then they'll post like the 1 or 2 books that they decided to order and to read. And posts like that make me uncomfortable. And the reason for that is not because I don't think they should read books by Black authors. Please, please do read books by Black authors. And I hope you find Black authors that you like and continue to read books by. But something like this shouldn't have to happen in order for you to read books by Black authors. You have to wait until it's trending to do this. Seeing things like that reminded me kind of when I first started watching Booktube and the way people would talk about diversity, which I will get to. But before I get to that, I do want to say, like, there are some things in this past week that I've seen that I've really loved seeing. I've seen many videos by Black booktubers that have been talking about their experiences on Booktube and what it's like being a Black booktuber. And obviously I'm a woman of color, so I understand a little bit what it's like to be different than many of the people around you or many of the people on the platform that you're on. But I'm not Black, and I don't know what it's like to be Black on Booktube. I don't know what it's like to be a Black man in America. Luckily, there are things called videos and books, and there are people who are Black who have made videos about what it's like to be Black on Booktube, and there are Black men in America who have written novels about what it's like to be Black in America. So before I get to more of the discussion of, you know, how I feel and what my experiences have been and what I think about the way people talk about diversity on Booktube, I want to recommend a few videos for you that I've seen over the past week or so, and a couple of books that I've read over the past few years that I think really resonate with the current time period and what is currently going on in the world. I'm going to start with the books. So the first book that I'd like to talk about is one that I talk about pretty often on my channel that I absolutely love, and that is Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi. So in one of my most recent tag videos, I mentioned this book, but I do think that it deserves the repeat mention here. It is a nonfiction book. It's a letter written by the author to his son about what it's like to be a Black man in America. And Ta-Nehisi is such a brilliant author, and he does such a good job of telling stories about his life that are so poignant and so powerfully depicted. It's such a good book, and it's so short too. Like, there's literally no excuse as to why you can't read this book. I borrowed the audiobook from my library, and I think I read it in like one sitting. And he's an author that has other books out as well. I've read one of his other books that I really love, and another one that I plan to read very soon. So I definitely would recommend that one. The other book that I definitely want to recommend to you guys that's specifically, you know, about being a Black man in America is Invisible Man by Ellison. So I read this book as my classic book back in February. This book was gripping from the very beginning to the very end. I loved every second of it. It talks very much about the racial divide in America. Mind you, this book was written in the 1950s. To me, it's just so sad how relevant it still is, you know, 70 years later, but it's still incredibly relevant to the things that are going on today. And it talks about racism and how it affects people's minds. It's kind of a mind-bendy book, but just an absolute masterpiece that I highly recommend, and definitely one that I'm probably gonna try and reread within the next year or so. I'm being very specific in the books and the videos that I want to recommend to you guys, and there's a reason for that, which I'll get to a little bit more in the second half of this video, but I wanted to do this first because this is the most important part, and I know how YouTube works, and most of you guys will probably stop watching about halfway through this video. So like I mentioned, one of the things that I've seen in this last week that I actually really loved talking about diversity was when Black booktubers were talking about their experiences being Black on Booktube. And I fell down a rabbit hole of videos of just, you know, dozens and dozens of these videos of people talking about their experiences that they've had in the past. But I wrote down about 5 of them that I thought were really powerful. A couple of these are booktubers that I have followed in the past that I've known for longer than the last week or so. A few of these I'm embarrassed to say that I've only found in the last week or so, but I hope to see more of their videos in the future. So the first one I want to talk about is the biggest Black booktuber on YouTube right now, and that's Naya Reads and Smiles. She did a video this week about Book Outlet and an experience that she had with Book Outlet quite recently. And honestly, it made me so angry. Not at her, but at Book Outlet. Like, the way they handled that situation was just so poorly done. And Book Outlet, again, is a company that I have bought from in the past pretty often. I had just, like, when I saw this video, I had just put in an order to Book Outlet that they had already shipped. So unfortunately, I couldn't cancel it, which made me angry also, because it made me want to never buy books from them again. Like, I can't speak to it as well as Naya does. And mind you, I'm linking all of these suggestions that I'm doing down in the description, so please check those out. But Naya's video I found to be very powerful, and it definitely opens your eyes to things that you wouldn't expect before. Another one was Ashley from The Bookish Realm. She is one of the first booktubers that welcomed me when I first joined Booktube. She's been one of the sweetest people that I have corresponded with over the last year or so. I really wish that I had found her channel before she reached out to me, but she's actually been on Booktube for 6 years, and she kind of did a video about some of the past experiences that she had, and I found it to be incredibly powerful, and especially towards the end when she talks about the way we've spoken about diversity in Booktube for years. Like, that really resonated with me because I felt the same things that she felt around the same time. I'm starting to realize that it is necessary to talk about these things when we do feel that way. Ashley's been a booktuber that has done that for years, and I have a lot of respect for her for that. I'm looking one of her videos that I watched. She has many videos about this actually, but the one that really resonated with me, I'm gonna link to that one down in the description for you guys. I have 3 more videos that I wanna recommend, and these are all from booktubers that I found this week because the YouTube algorithm is finally suggesting Black booktubers for me. And maybe this is not the way to go about looking for Black booktubers. I'm not a perfect person. I don't do things correctly every single time, and I'm sorry for that, but there are 3 more videos that I'd like to recommend for you guys. The first one is by Lucy Reads. She's one that I really love her style, not clothing, just like the way she talks and the way she articulates herself. I really resonate with. Like, I feel like she's one of those people that, like, if we met in real life, I would want to be friends with her. And she did a video about being Black on Booktube, especially again towards the end. She talked about engaging with content in a way that I really liked the way she talked about that. So I'll link that video down below as well. Diana in Color also did a video about being Black on Booktube, and specifically about trending and how this is a topic that's trending right now, which I completely agree with. It is definitely a topic that's trending right now, and it's something that a lot of people are hopping on right now, and I don't think is necessarily the way to go about things. I do think, yes, people should be doing this right now, but like Diana says in that video, this is not something that you do, you know, just in February for Black History Month, but this is something that you should be doing all year round. And I think she had a lot of great suggestions specifically about allyship. If you're a non-Black booktuber, what you can do right now to be an ally. And I think she spoke that very eloquently. The last one I talk about is a video by Seji, who is the artisan Greek on YouTube. And the video that she did is probably the first one that I was just like, more people need to watch this, because she did a video in which she talked about actual experiences that she had interacting with other booktubers, and she was very specific. She named some names, and one, I want to say that I commend her for doing things like that. That was so brave of her to talk about booktubers that have platforms that are much larger than hers. And I just found that she's so smart in the way that she talked about being Black on Booktube and things like that, and I hope that you guys go and watch some of these videos. While there were plenty of videos that I watched, these are the ones that I felt like I really resonated with and I would like to recommend to you guys. There are tons of other videos out there. There are tons of other video lists out there that I hope you guys also go and watch. But if you have seen any of these videos, if you have read either of the books that I mentioned, let me know down in the comments. Now that I've kind of done that first part of this video, which I consider kind of the more important part, I want to talk a little bit from kind of my own experience. This week, watching Booktube videos have reminded me a little bit about diversity and the way diversity has been handled on Booktube in the past. And I don't think it's necessarily individual booktubers, but it could be. I don't have any specifics. I wish I did, but I don't remember. And I'm one of those people that I like to stick to the positives. I don't like to dwell on the negatives. So I just try and ignore it, which is not something that you can always do. But I think the best way to describe this would be from an anecdote from my actual life. So back in high school, I was on the dance team. I was one of 2 girls of color on the dance team. When I joined, there was one other girl who was a sophomore at the time, who was half black and half white, and then there was me, and I'm of Indian descent. So she and I were the only 2 girls of color on the dance team up until the end of my junior year. And then of course she graduated. And in my senior year, we did have another girl join the dance team who was a freshman who was black. So there was always at least 2 girls of color on the dance team, but the majority of the girls on the team were white. And I always felt a little separated from them. I didn't see it as a race thing back then. I didn't really think about it that way. I think I started to feel a little bit that way in my senior year. So in my senior year, I became aware of this person, this guy, who had a tendency to latch on to a single girl that he wanted to date and semi-stalk them for a good long period of time. And in my senior year, he decided that he wanted to date an Indian girl, which he was in the band, I was on the dance team. One day at practice, he saw me on the dance team and decided that I was gonna be that Indian girl that he wanted to date. We had never talked before. We had never had a single conversation before. I didn't know this guy. I had never even really knew his name, but I kept hearing people talk about me in conjunction with him and how he really wanted to date me because I was Indian. That went on like that for several months. Then he asked me out. Then he asked me out again. And then he asked me out again. And I rejected him. And I rejected him again. And I rejected him again. And it had been several months in between each of these. It was several weeks away from prom at this time. It's no longer football season, so the marching band is not really a thing anymore. But there was another competition, so the marching band had this gathering, get together or whatever. It was at a bowling alley where people were bowling, which is great. I had fun. So it was the marching band and the dance team. And you know, in bowling where you can put your name on the screen, you could type it in. Well, on the screen he put, and mind you, this is someone who I hadn't had a single actual conversation with. I don't know anything about this person. So on the screen, as his name, he puts my name, comma, will you go to prom with me? So obviously it's there for everyone to see. Everyone in the band, this is a 200 plus person marching band. And everyone's there. Everyone can see it. I don't know that it's up there because he doesn't come and tell me. Mind you, he does not come and tell me. So one of the other girls on the dance team sees it and tells me. So I go and look and I see it and he's standing right there. And I was so livid. I was so mad. I don't think I even looked at him. I just said no and walked away. I left. I didn't stay for the rest of the day. And I didn't really understand why I was mad. I didn't understand it until one of the other girls from the dance team walked up to me. This was someone who I considered my friend at the time. And she was like, well, why wouldn't you go with him? You know, it would have been so cool. Everyone would have been like, so-and-so finally found an Indian girl. I don't think I answered her. I think I just shrugged it off. But I think that's when I realized why I was so angry. It's because I didn't want to be asked out because I was an Indian girl. I wanted to be asked out because someone wanted to go with me. I'm more than just some Indian girl. I have feelings. I have wants and aspirations. I have likes and dislikes. I am a person who also happens to be some Indian girl. So The way he treated me made me feel like a non-human. It made me feel like a prop that he was using to look like he wanted to be with an Indian girl. You know what I mean? And I realized with him, it wasn't coming from a place of racism. Like, he wasn't thinking of it that way. Coming from a good place. Like, he wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to include me, which is fine. But the way he went about it was incredibly racist. And that's kind of how I feel diversity is talked about a lot on Booktube. People are always calling for more diversity in books. Like, they want more books by Black authors. They want more, queer lit out there. They want more, women in fantasy. But when they recommend books, I feel like a lot of times they'll go out of the way to recommend diverse books because they're diverse, not because they actually like the books that they're recommending. And it becomes kind of this cycle of people recommending books just because they're diverse, and maybe they're good books, maybe they are, but if you don't actually like the book and you're only recommending it because it's diverse, or even like when it comes to booktubers, like if you're only recommending booktubers because they're Black right now, that's not the reason to recommend them. You should be recommending them because they're booktubers that you like. You should be recommending their videos because they're videos that you felt something about, that you think need to be watched. I think both Diana in Color and Ashley from Bookish Realm kind of touched on this a little bit in their videos. Please go watch their videos. They do this way better than I do. But they touched on kind of like people in February will read books by Black authors. And I thought about that recently. And yeah, I mean, it's great that you want to read more diversely. I think it's wonderful. But doing it only 1 month out of the year is not the way to do it. Doing it only because it's trendy right now is not the way to do it. And it's something that I have come to realize this past year. Diversity is something that I have really tried to pay a little bit more attention to. And it's hard because the books that most people recommend are not very diverse. And I tend to read a lot of popular things. And then if you look specifically for books that are diverse, you find a lot of diverse books. What I've noticed is a lot of people recommend, again, diverse books because they're diverse and not because they're necessarily good. And when you do that, it's the same as a guy asking an Indian girl to prom because she's Indian and not because he actually wants to go with her. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you want to recommend books by Black authors, please do. Please read books by Black authors and recommend the ones that you like. Because if you recommend the ones that you don't like, those are the only books that people are going to read. And it becomes this vicious circle of people reading books by Black authors that they don't like, and then not wanting to read more books by them because thinking that those are the only Black authors out there, and they're not. If you don't have any books by Black authors that you like, then read more books. I'm sure there are more out there. I always feel weird criticizing a book by a Black or other minority author. I want more people to read those books, even if I personally didn't like them. And I always kind of feel bad when I give one of those books a bad review because more people still need to read that book. But at the same time, I want to be honest with how I felt about it, because it annoys the crap out of me when I'm looking for diverse books and all I'm finding are books that I don't like, because those are the only books that are constantly circled around on Booktube. I don't know, this was a weird video. I don't think I came up with any real solutions here on how to do this. I feel like there's some pressure a lot of times when it comes to reading more diversely to recommend diverse books. People feel like they're doing the right thing by recommending, the 1 or 2 books that they read by diverse authors, but you're not. If the only reason you're recommending those books is because they're diverse, then you're actually hurting things more than you're helping them, because people are going to read those books based off of your recommendation. And I've seen many booktubers do this. I'll read 5 books recommended by this booktuber, and the 4 that they recommended by white authors are amazing, and the 1 they recommended by a Black author is not good. That's because that's the only book they read by a Black author, and they only recommended it because it was by a Black author. They should just read more books by Black authors and find the ones that they like the most and then recommend those, because that's what they do with the white authors. And that's why people have a tendency to read more white authors, is because honestly, those books have more competition. More people read them, and more people criticize them if they're not good. I'm not saying go out there and criticize every Black author that you can or every minority author that you can. Please don't. But when you recommend books by Black and minority authors, make sure they're books that you like. And if you don't have books that you like by Black and minority authors, then read more books by Black and minority authors. Just do it. It's not that hard. There's plenty of them out there. More of them should be more popular than they are, so it's definitely possible to find underrated ones. And I know sometimes it's hard for us to pick up a book that haven't been recommended to us, but that's something that I'm personally trying to be better about. I will be the first person to admit that I have a tendency to read only popular books, and I don't know if there is a solution to this. This is a complex thing that has so many moving parts, but the recommendations that I gave to you guys at the beginning of this video regarding Black Lives Matter, I did those recommendations based off of things that I've read and videos that I've watched that I personally felt were really powerful and I think are worth the read and worth the watch. I hope that you do read them. I hope that you do watch them. And I hope this is something that we don't have to have, people murdered in the streets for us to continue doing. That shouldn't be something that has to happen. I hope that we can continue to have diversity in books and to have those voices being heard. I hope that there can be changes in our policing system here in the United States, systematic changes that can improve the lives of everyone. Let me know down in the comments some of the things that you've felt this week, some of the things that you've seen this week that you personally felt strongly about. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.